We're going to take a look at Chapter 11, which deals with network management. We're going to take a look at all of the components and the technologies that are involved in network management. As you should have identified by this point in time, pretty much the process of the network itself is to provide services. So the network, as far as the infrastructure, the servers, the desktop, the applications that we run, those are all designed to provide services to somebody, employees within the company, or certain business processes that we need to accomplish on a daily or some sort of a frequent basis. So we need to, as IT people, we need to be able to manage our network. We need to be able to make sure that the service that we're providing to the rest of the company is always at its most efficient. So when it comes to managing a network, it is a complex process. We're going to manage the hardware, the software technologies, and of course those are what are linked by our network infrastructure. Basically, managing a network consists of three components. Service management, as I just said, we're providing services to the folks within the company. If I'm a telecom, I'm providing services to those that subscribe to those services. And we can break down the services then into the IT infrastructure management areas of systems administration and network management. So think of systems administration as applications, servers, desktops, printers, users, things of that nature. The courses that we offer here, we have one program is the Microsoft Certification Program or courses, the Net 120 series, and that deals specifically with systems administration. So in that case, it's specifically Microsoft. There are, I think the other campus at one time was offering Linux systems administration. Under the heading of network management, that would include things like our routers, our switches, our bridges, the actual data transport services. Notice that hubs is not there, because hubs, remember, operates at the electrical level, it's not a manageable device. But when we get to switches, we're looking at the data link layer. When we get to routers, we're looking at the network layer, and those certainly are manageable devices. We need to be able to control the flow of data through those devices. And again, we have a program that specializes just in network management. That's our Cisco certification program, and that would be the Net 100 series of courses. So this course is, you should be aware of by now, is our introductory course that then leads you to one of these higher levels here. More than likely systems administration or network management, or possibly programming. Okay? So first we're going to take a look at service management, then we'll get into the IT infrastructure management. Service management is concerned with the management of IT services and the business processes that depend on them. Benefits, characteristics of our IT services would include the bulleted list that we have here. We want to give the highest quality of service that we possibly can. We want to have the lowest cost as far as being able to provide those services. We want to provide greater flexibility. We want to provide great responsiveness. We want to have consistent service. It's not very enjoyable for those that are subscribing to our service if our service is intermittent and sometimes it's working and sometimes it's not. Faster response to customer needs. We're going to take a look at help desks a little bit later on and how they are utilized to manage the customer side of it. And then we want to be proactive rather than reactive. In other words, we want to plan for problems that are going to occur. We throw redundancy into the system so that if one component goes down, we have a backup system that takes over immediately. So being proactive makes us much more efficient and capable of providing much better services. So this diagram here, which is on page 429, it's a little ahead, 427 in your book, is the service management architecture. So everything starts from the business perspective. We start with the strategic business initiative, which is what business requires from the network. We're going to implement then some sort of a business process. We're going to create a service level expectation, meaning we want to identify what the service is, what we expect from that service as far as speed, reliability, all those things that we just talked about. And then down here, these would be then the supporting components that help us to make up the actual service itself. And so they include the service definition, actually defining what that service is going to be. And this is very generic here, but it might be something as simple as providing file services to the network. It might be providing print services to the network. It might be just simply providing email to the network. So those are all possible services, and that would be even broad at that level. We would get more specific on each of those items. Service delivery, how we're going to deliver the services to the network, what's going to be the cost of providing those services, and then service auditing, which means that we want to actually analyze the service as it's being provided to see, is it meeting our level of service? Because we're going to have a service level agreement here in just a little bit that we'll talk about, and we want to make sure that we're meeting that service level agreement. And that's from both sides, both the IT infrastructure that's providing the service and from the business side of the company that is actually utilizing the service. Service definition and frameworks. Services are defined in terms of three components. The processes, what the actual pieces of the puzzle are, so to speak, that are going to make up that service that we're going to be providing. The technical expertise, which is the people that are involved in creating the processes and overseeing the provision of the service. And then the actual technology that's required to deliver those services. Any given service can vary in terms of several characteristics contributing to measurable differences in both cost and price. So the more complex the service is going to affect the cost or the price. Risk, whether there's any risk involved, what type of security we may or may not have to implement. Required service or support level. So if we have say a higher speed network as opposed to a lower speed network. And then also the level of deviation from the basic or baseline service. So we may, especially in the case of a telco, be providing a basic service like DSL in the home environment at a particular speed, and say a company comes in and requests DSL but wants that to be provided at a higher speed, so now we're above the baseline level of service. In fact, baseline is a good key for you to, good term for you to think about. When we're talking about providing services, we're going to want to analyze the baseline. We want to analyze all the components that are making up that service, operating at normal levels, and then we're going to capture that information. We're going to record that information and compare that information to, at a later date, when we go back and we audit and we capture the data again, we want to see if there's any changes in the network. Is a server being more utilized than it was before? Is a particular network link being more utilized than it was before? So baseline is where we start from, and baseline in this particular case is the actual level of service that we intend on providing. But as I say, we're going to go back and we're going to audit at a later date, and you want to analyze your baseline values to the current values and see if there's any differences there. The ISO, which you know is responsible for the OSI model, that 7-layer model that we've been talking about as far as networking. They provided a management framework. They have broken it down into these 5 categories: fault management, configuration management, performance management, security management, and accounting management. If you go to page 428 of your book, you'll see the table down there at the bottom that has all of the ISO categories, these 5 categories that I've just listed there for you. And it gives you a little bit more detail of each of those individual items. The other thing you want to know about it is just that ISO, every time that they come up with a standard, they assign a number to it. So this network management standard is 7498-4. I think there's a test question on that in the quizzes. Now on the next page there, 429, and actually above the table, 428, and then continuing over to 429, they've also, your author has given you some additional categories of service management. They would include the service level management, incident management, problem management, change management, capacity management, asset management, which we'll look at in greater detail a little bit later on, and then availability and risk management. And that would include contingency planning. What happens if things go awry?